#sports.net or ultimatesportstalk.com. Don't call it a comeback because he's been here for years. Ladies and gentlemen, the resurrection of Quickdraw with the Sheriff, Johnny the Sheriff Shabbat. I'm very pleased to be here talking with him as we previewed on the Wednesday show. And just really quick before we get to that, what is social media sports talk? What does that mean? Well, basically what that is, you can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, Flickr, and Tumblr. Basically, where you have a social media site, you can catch us. So, without any further ado, I'd like to announce my esteemed colleague, Johnny the Sheriff. How you doing, Johnny?
Doing really well. Good to be here. Happy Friday, everybody. Thank God it's Friday.
Oh, yes.
It's been too long. Been on a little hiatus and, traveling all over the world, and it's good to be back. So let's talk some sports, man. What do you want to start with?
I want to start with, everyone is talking now about teams here and there that, are going to be drafting certain players, where they're going to go, what position they're going to go. But no one really talks about the individual teams themselves and if they really, if some of these teams actually know what they're doing. And I heard you had a very interesting story about a team that did know what they were doing. So
it's a great point. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, Mike Lombardi was a new scout for the 49ers working under Bill Walsh. And he was at his first NFL draft, and Bill Walsh notices that he was a little nervous. He comes over, taps him on the back, and just says, "Hey, man, don't worry about it. There's only about 8 teams out there that really know what they're doing. That's it, 8 teams." And in what Lombardi had to say about that was he noticed that it was like that all the time, and that there's only 8 teams in the NFL draft every single year. Now those teams change, over time. I mean, the 49ers, you could tell they've just been there for a long time. I mean, they had that 10-year drought during maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, and you call that a drought. I mean, they still had T.O., they still had Jeff Garcia playing, so they were still in the they were still winning games. And I guess when I say drought, I mean like a playoff drought. I think they had like a small playoff drought there in the early 2000s.
I think we've experienced one of those here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Buffalo Bills, unfortunately, haven't been there since 1999. And, I wouldn't ranking teams in the NFL, you've got your 8 good ones and your 8 terrible ones. Then you've got everybody else in the middle, and I think Buffalo, unfortunately, has been stuck at average, to me. You're always going to get them anywhere between 10 to 20. I think this is, what are they this year, 9?
Yes.
They're 9. So, and this is the first year I think they've been in the top 10 pick since, I'm going from
they're always hovering around that pick.
They're always hovering, 11, 13.
We were 8th last year. We ended up trading back to get EJ, and it just seems that we're always hovering around that mid-range 10 to 15. We're always sitting there, and you have to try to get some of these quality players, and it's got to start from the top down. And
absolutely,
what I wanted to ask you really quick, I mean, there have been a couple blogs posted on #sports.net about the architect. And I've been very adamant about this. Everyone knows, if you listen to the #sports shows, you know that this is what's going on. Doug Whaley. I firmly believe that this man is really trying to recreate the Steelers of the 2000s that he's seen have so much success, go to 3 Super Bowls, win 2. I mean, it's coming from the top down. And we even received word last week that they're going to be practicing with the Steelers coming up.
You just gave me goosebumps a little bit. I was reading over your blog, and you talking about the Bills offense and how he was trying to recreate the offense that they had out in Pittsburgh, especially in the early 2000s. And then you talk about the defenses. It's really, to me, it's a very interesting way to look at it. Teams, as I was saying earlier, teams tend to change. Pittsburgh's been at the top of their game for a long time. In the 70s they won 4 Super Bowls. And they had their small drought too in the 80s, but then they picked it back up in the 90s and won. They were in the AFC Championship, I think, a few times in the 90s. One with Cordell Stewart.
They had the chin guiding them that time.
Yeah, exactly.
They had Cowher.
And Cowher won a Super Bowl, and then Tomlin won a Super Bowl as well in 2000, I believe 5 and 6, if that memory serves me correct. But this is how teams like Indianapolis, when they got Bill Polian from the Buffalo Bills, became good and became Super Bowl contenders, is because they were able to take away those scouts from the good teams that knew what they were doing. Mm-hmm. I think Kansas City might be there. This is a new team that's on the cusp right now, where they weren't there for a long time, and now they just I know they took Pioli. Pioli's gone now. But a lot of those scouts that Pioli brought over from New England, Kansas City is really doing some great things now, and I think they're an up-and-coming team. You talk about Doug Whaley with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're an up-and-coming team, and you won't see it, and that's the beautiful thing about the NFL, is you don't see results for 5 years. You really don't. I mean, what you do today, you're going to see 5 years from today. And what sometimes, you look at what John Butler did with the Buffalo Bills, and, that might be a big reason why between 2000 and 2005 we weren't really competing, because Butler put us into some really big trouble in the late 90s,
Yeah.
And you don't see it right away. And all the success that he had during his tenure, a lot of it was Bill Polian bringing the right players and Butler paying too much to keep them.
Mm-hmm.
And
unfortunately, they start to get older.
They get older and they break down.
That talent, yeah.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the people that he lost that were really key to Buffalo's success was that offensive line. Starting
Mm-hmm.
with Kent Hall when he retired, and once that offensive line went, I mean, Jim Kelly just was getting beat up, and that's when he decided to retire. But even in 1999, when we had that opportunity and lost to Tennessee Titans in that Music City Miracle, that was a Super Bowl year. They were truly Super Bowl contenders, and I believe that year St. Louis won against Tennessee by a yard,
mm-hmm.
and in one of the great Super Bowls. You tend to wonder what Buffalo could have done that year
it definitely,
in the Super Bowl.
The pain of that definitely just came back,
Yeah.
as you said that, because the Music City Miracle, everyone knows, is well documented. And the team that you lost to, that had to win on a miracle, goes to the dance, and it's. But I hate to disagree with you, but
yeah,
that Kurt Warner led Rams team,
yeah,
I really don't think anybody could have beat them. And if it wasn't for Spygate, they would have won it in 2001 too.
Right.
So that team was just unbelievable.
That's a good point. Now,
Yeah.
and looking back at it, our defense was the best defense in football that year. They were the number one defense in football. And to me, number one defenses in the Super Bowl, and you look at Seattle this year,
Yep.
You look at all the number one defenses in the last 20 years, they never lose. And
Yeah.
that year, the Buffalo Bills had the number one defense in the league. And if it wasn't for that last-minute miracle, I still think it's a forward pass. So you're not going to, computers aren't going to change my mind.
I don't care how many people try to tell me that was a lateral or this is that. No, it wasn't.
Absolutely
okay.
not.
Then if you're a fan in Tennessee listening to this right now, you're welcome. Okay.
Yes.
What they did, they went underneath the hood there and they called security and they said, "Hey, how many security guards we got here today?"
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It wasn't forward. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, but another thing that I wanted to ask you about, we're circling around this. We're talking about the Buffalo Bills. You have to try to draft well. I believe the Buffalo Bills are on the right track with the architect that I talked about.
I think they're on the fence. I think they got to have some luck.
With all of this talk, and I know it may get a little UFC in here, but Mike Evans, I know you're really high on him. Tell me why you like the Buffalo Bills taking Mike Evans with the 9th overall pick.
And we're talking about up until today, I was a big Mike Evans fan. I was really big. I know that E.J. Manuel needs some weapons, but the Buffalo Bills don't have a number one wide receiver. They don't. Stevie Johnson is a slot receiver. I think Woods is, with the speed, he could spread out the field. Him and Goodwin both have great speed. Goodwin with a little bit more size. I think they need a number one, and I think bringing in Mike Johnson,
Williams.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Mike Williams. He played under. He played under the Buffalo Bills coach in Syracuse
Yep.
for a little bit, although he was asked to leave there. One of the most difficult, in my opinion, one of the most difficult positions to adapt to in the NFL is the wide receiver position, especially in your first and second year. There's a lot of technique that's involved at the pro level that is really just cannot be accomplished in college. And very rarely do you ever see a rookie wide receiver come out and just tear it up. And Mike was able to do that in Tampa for his first and second years. Now, what happened after that? The personal issues started coming into play. Coaching changes.
He played his brother in Madden. That's what happened.
That's what happened.
No.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, he got stabbed in the leg. And that was just a few weeks ago. But which, legs are important for wide receivers. That's a whole nother point.
What I don't get, the guy gets signed to a 6-year, $40 million deal, and you decide to trade him for a 6th-round pick. I mean, what is really going on? What did Lovie Smith just do to the Bills? What is really going on with this guy in terms of, you talk about from a physical standpoint and a production standpoint, he is a very solid wide receiver. Yeah. 6'2", can catch the ball, can get some separation. But what is really going on? Why was this guy who just got signed for 6 years, 40, just let go? Basically for a 6th-round pick.
That's the $1 million question. When you look at a guy like Lovie Smith, who he gets fired for going what did he go 12-4 that year, and he got fired.
I'll have to check that.
I know it was a winning season, and I think the guy's a brilliant coach. Took Chicago Bears to a Super Bowl. So when he makes a decision like this, you have to wonder: is it because he wants just a fresh start, a clean slate, and wants to build his own team, which a lot of coaches do? A lot of guys, is it a locker room problem? Is he a cancer? To me, he comes in and he looks at his cap and he says, I need specific players at other positions right now, and the wide receiver position isn't it. And I think where he's going to have the most problems is going to be, what kind of quarterback is he going to get?
The one thing I could say is that if Tampa Bay is lucky, and I'm going to say this, with the 7th overall pick, if they're lucky enough for Sammy Watkins to fall there, that's the trade-off I would take. You're going to give me Sammy Watkins or Mike Williams, I'm going to take Sammy Watkins 10 times out of 10.
Absolutely.
But the problem is him getting to 7. And looking at it, just from what you mentioned earlier, I mean, Lovie Smith, he caught a bad break. They went 10-6 that year and had the 5th-ranked defense in the league. And you get fired. I mean, that reminds me of when Marty Schottenheimer went 14-2.
That's right.
And got ousted by New England when they were in their prime.
That's right.
And he gets fired. It's like, what? Why is he? And he doesn't want. I don't think him coming back. I think he wants to erase that stigma that he can't win the big one. And he's been a heck of a coach.
Remember, what about the coach for the Buffalo Bills after that '99 loss?
Wade.
Wade.
Good old Wade.
Yeah, he got fired the next year, didn't he? After going 13-3. And that year, almost going to the Super Bowl, but because he put in Rob Johnson instead of Doug Flutie and losing that game, he gets fired. I think they went 13-3 that year.
Still hurts me to this day. Still hurts me.
Going back to the teams that know what they're doing in the draft, and the teams that don't know what they're doing. You get some of the same teams in the top 10 every year. I mean, you look at a team like Cleveland. They've been in the top 10, in the top 5, really, pretty much almost every year since they got back into the league. You look at a team like the Oakland Raiders. Since 2001, they're always up there. St. Louis Rams, they're always up there. These are teams that are just terrible. You consistently find them at the top of the list. And then you look at the other teams. Some of the good teams, in my opinion, that line up at the top. The teams that Lombardi was talking about. I think there's some on the cusp. I think the Buffalo Bills are on the cusp. Kansas City Chiefs are on the cusp. I think the Carolina Panthers are on the cusp. And believe it or not, I hate to say it because they've been so terrible for such a long time. But they've got a very unique way of doing things. Are the Cincinnati Bengals?
Mhm.
They're on the cusp.
Well, we made a point earlier about everything seems to filter down with a lot of these teams, and they just got rid of both their coordinators.
Yeah.
One's in Minnesota, one's in Washington now. I mean,
Right.
To bring in two coordinators at once. I mean, obviously, the head coach is still there, but if you bring in two coordinators at once, what does that say? About the type of dynamic. You may be at a completely different team the next year, even though you have some veterans there.
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, but it's very tough for, teams to overcome that. When the Bills were going through the trials and tribulations this year, I wasn't that upset because you brought in a new head coach, you got a new GM, you got a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new quarterback,
Right.
rookie wide receivers.
Right.
How far does the list go?
Right.
So,
And then you end up losing one of them to the Cleveland Browns this year,
that's
which I believe
we're going to feel that.
I believe Cleveland is going to feel it as well. Nobody understands Mike Pettine is really the real deal. I really think that he's a hidden jewel. Nobody knew about him. I think the Buffalo Bills had something good going, and there's going to be some hurt there. Now that being said, they brought in a good replacement. The head coach of the Detroit Lions last year. I'm having a problem with names
Schwartz.
today. Yeah,
Jim
Schwartz. And so may the Schwartz be with you. He's going to come in, and I think he's going to have a hell of a defense. And I think this move by taking a receiver in free agency, I think this is a great move for the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, to go with a linebacker. I think that's where they go. I know a lot of people want to talk about them taking an offensive tackle. I hope to God they don't.
Why?
I'm telling you, I hope
Why?
I am not a big believer that you take offensive linemen in the first round.
Oh God,
I
just have so many. Oh my God, I have so many dreams of having. You got Glenn, you got Williams now that was just acquired. You got Wood, you got Pierce moving down, and you put Lewan over at right tackle. That line, you're not going to move it. You could put anybody in any skill position on that offense and do whatever you want. If that line is able to gel like that,
I just think you could get the same kind of talent in the second round this year.
Well, they stole Glenn in the second round. That was he was a first round talent that was taken in the second round.
Huge steal. That was huge for the Buffalo Bills. But I really think that they could get somebody in the second round on offensive tackle. The guy that I want to talk about as far as linebacker, UCLA linebacker Barr. He'll be there. A lot of people are saying if it wasn't for Khalil Mack from UB, University of Buffalo, that Barr shouldn't be overshadowed by that much. I mean, Khalil Mack had an incredible year, but you look at the difference between his division and the Pac-10. It's a completely different division. There's going to be much more talent out on the Pacific Coast, way more than what Khalil Mack had to deal with. Now, I saw Khalil Mack play against Ohio State.
I was just going to bring that up.
And I mean, what a game! I mean, he was in the spotlight. And he stepped up. And then I've seen him play again. He's just a man among boys. I've seen him play about 10 different games this year. Every time they were on ESPN2, I watched the game. And he was just such a joy to watch. It really, I mean, he dominated those boys.
The thing that I noticed the most when I was watching Khalil Mack and, the play in question, I actually called the closer right after it happened. And I said, closer, he is going to be a first-round pick next year. Oh, yeah. He goes, what happened? I said, he just got off a cut block, picked off a slant route, and ran it back, outran an Ohio State wide, and outran Miller to the corner. Now, the thing that I like, why Mack is going ahead of Barr, and people always like to talk about the physical attributes that this guy has. The one thing you have to notice is because of the conference that he was in, because of the team that he was playing on, he was the number one focus. So they were always either double teaming him, chipping him, running away from him. So for him, it may have been very frustrating this year for him to do a lot of the things that he probably wanted to do. With Barr, like you said, better conference, better team around him. maybe he's not called on to do as many things, and he's left alone to his own devices. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Barr. If the Bills draft Barr with the 9th pick, I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to question it, but I'm not going to be upset because we got a great player. You just signed Spikes. You got Rivers. You got all these other guys that are floating around. But I think that in order for this team to take that next step forward, it has to come up front. Everyone talks about the front seven. Now,
absolutely.
We made a joke about it on a Wednesday show when we were speaking with Del Reed of Bills Mafia. He said that if the Bills were going to trade up to get the number 1 pick from Houston and they draft Clowney, could you imagine putting Clowney across from Mario Williams and how ridiculous that would be?
I don't know if you remember the Cornelius Bennett trade. If you're familiar with that, it was Eric Dickerson and Cornelius Bennett were traded in a 3-team trade with the back then with the Colts, and the Colts were able to get 2 number 1 picks and 2 round 3 picks.
Okay. 1
from each the Buffalo Bills and from the Los Angeles Rams.
Okay.
The Rams gave up Dickerson. Dickerson ended up going to the. Colts gave up Dickerson. Dickerson ended up going to.
You mean the Rams gave him up to the Colts?
To the Colts, yes.
All right.
And I'm sorry. The Rams got 2 number 1 picks and two number 3 picks. Plus they got a guy from I can't remember his name, running back for the Buffalo Bills. So the running back from the Buffalo Bills, who by the way was a 1,000-yard rusher at the time, and his name it just doesn't come to me. He goes to the Rams. Dickerson goes to the Colts, and Cornelius Bennett goes to the Buffalo Bills. A linebacker who literally changed the game for Buffalo. This is a guy. This is how important this thing was to the Buffalo Bills to get a linebacker that good, especially in a 3-4 scheme. They were able to use Cornelius Bennett in coverage. I mean, he was one of the best run stoppers, and I believe, he broke records for sacks by a linebacker. I think he's pretty much number 1 in every stat that the linebackers have as a Buffalo Bill. I think the linebacker position just does so much to change a game. More than an offensive line position, because an offensive line position is a unit. Now, I know the defense is a unit, and you can talk about defensive lines being units and linebacker units being as a unit, but nothing more to me emphasizes teamwork and the strength of a unit more than the offensive line, because together they have to do it's a blocking scheme, and not one person can dominate. You can always run the opposite way. You could always run the opposite way of the left tackle if the left tackle guy can't run, right? You're always going to run behind your best guy. So, but in a linebacker position, those are game changing positions where a player can come in and truly, be worth, 3 or 4 wins in a season, where I think an offensive lineman at most might be worth a half a game.
I could totally see where you're where you're coming from, but you know what? It would make me scratch my head if you went out and got these linebackers, and then you go and draft another one. You know what I mean? Like last year, and the closer brought it up to my attention earlier today. He said last year when the Buffalo Bills signed Cobb, that was the smoke screen that they were going to take a quarterback. This year, people want to have that same mentality. I'm going to talk about the wide receiver. Bringing in Williams, they think that's going to be a smoke screen that they're going to take a wide receiver. Williams is the 5th wide receiver they've brought in, since the season has ended. So, and all these guys are 6'2" and over.
Right.
So you want to talk about big wide receivers? They got Ramses Barton, they got Elliott, they got.
You're right.
They got all these guys.
You blogged about it the other day.
Yeah, I'm looking here at some of the guys. They just brought in Chris Summers, who, we mentioned he's bounced around here and there, and if you saw him and Alshon Jeffrey standing next to each other, you wouldn't know who was who. That's how. But they brought Brandon Kaufman back, who they cut.
Just give me 80% of Alshon Jeffrey's talent. That guy. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. But
no, I'm saying is they brought all of these big guys in, Now, another blog that you may, I think you referenced earlier was, with Doug Whaley bringing in all these guys and having the current roster that they have. I've compared, and we've had on the show collectively at #Sports. Robert Woods is going to be the Hines Ward edition. Guy loves getting his nose dirty, loves throwing his body all over the place there. He runs very crisp routes. Even, you play at UFC, or not UFC, yeah, you play at UFC. You play at USC, you're playing in a pro-style offense. So you're getting used to running those routes on a daily basis. Yeah. You got Marquise Goodwin, who is just a little bit shorter, but he's your Mike Wallace. Right. He takes the cover off the defense. But what I like about Goodwin is what I saw last year.
Now,
even
Goodwin's
though he had a
5'9", 5'10", 5'9".
The thing about Goodwin is that even though he had a tough, some people might say he didn't have a very productive rookie campaign. Mm-hmm. The guy can harness that speed inside of that field. Yeah. Most guys are just fast in the NFL, and they're like you talk about a Darius Hayward Bay. Mm-hmm. There's two people sitting here right now with better hands than Darius Hayward Bay. Right. But we don't run 4.3s. That's the problem. And and the other guy is going to be like Stevie Johnson. When Stevie Johnson is the biggest wide receiver you have coming in, you have to find bigger.
6'1"?
Yeah, he's like 6'1", 6'2". Yeah. You have to find bigger guys to come in and make him play the slot. He is a slot receiver that can just totally dominate games from the slot.
That's where he belongs, and I think I think Mike Williams does bring that number one, at least theoretically. He does bring that number one wide receiver to the Bills. I don't know if he'll execute the way he did in his first and second years, and I think a lot of that's going to be with this coach and that relationship and how his coach can lead him. And I think the second thing, E.J. Manuel. Now, E.J. Manuel, they say, is just one of the greatest leaders on the field, even as a rookie. They said his stature and his demeanor and coming in and the way he controls a huddle. So the only thing that's missing from a guy like E.J. Manuel is maybe just accuracy right now, especially with that deep ball. He had a good one open.
Him throwing it in trash cans all offseason.
All day. From 40 yards and
you rehab him, just sit down and throw him in trash cans.
40 yards and beyond. I mean, they have to. He missed, Goodwin was probably open maybe a dozen different times where he missed him, whether it was short or long. And he's, when he gets it on point, he scored some great touchdowns. I mean, he looked pretty, especially some of the ones down the middle where he just lets it go and then lets the receiver catch up to it. Those are some pretty ones. But as far as leadership, I mean, if you're going to have a guy like Williams come in who's had some issues off the field, maybe, this coaching staff, the familiarity, along with a quarterback like E.J. Manuel, this could be a good fit for the Bills. And, that's why when you bring up protection and protecting E.J. to get him that time to throw to these guys, that is super important. But is it something that you can't get in the later rounds? Because that first pick has got to be all pro.
And with, I've been calling them the big three when I've been talking to a couple people that have been talking to me about you got Robinson, you got Matthews, and you got Lewan. Those are the big three of the linemen that are going to be, and you have the 9th pick overall. If I had a quarterback that played 16 games, took some hits, but still got up, I could see sacrificing a lineman and taking him in the later rounds. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you have 4 knee injuries and 3 knee procedures, and you are the franchise quarterback. I am not. I'm going to find people around you that from start to finish there won't be a spot on your jersey. Okay, that's what I want to find. And you know what? How you do that is
that is also it's also the quarterback as well.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just going to get to that. I'm not placing this all on the offensive line and saying, "Oh my God, this offensive line needs the one."
I looked at that
great.
Offensive line.
You were second in rushing last year.
They were pretty good.
Yeah. So if he has to get off his reads faster. I mean, we've mentioned that on #sports time and time again. You got to get off your first read. You got to be able to slide when you get out of the pocket.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it's just a lot of these things that we've been talking about, and they're reiterated by, it's just the little things you got to do. Get off your first read. If you put 5 guys around him, and he's able to get off his first read just a little bit faster, there are routes that develop that are open. He just doesn't see them sometimes. So
Yeah, and they had issues last year with E.J. Manuel reading the reading the defense. I mean, they had him reading half of the field.
When you're injured as much as he was, you can't develop that chemistry and that timing with your receivers. Yeah. It's just impossible.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially as
vets have trouble coming back from injuries and development time. So
that's a good point. Now, what do you think about the Buffalo Bills drafting Eric Ebra, tight end?
You know what? I was
out of North Carolina.
I've read some stuff about Ebron, and if I was to check it out right here, I got my draft cheat sheet here. Okay. The guy is 6'4", 250, runs a 4.6, 24 reps, 10-foot broad jump. I mean, you run a 4.6 at 6'4", 250. That's a scary man coming down the field at you. And I think what we're starting to see here,
that's number one. I mean, that's first round talent. Right?
Oh yeah, and we're starting to see the evolution of the tight end position as.
That's what I mean.
Used to be that guy. Oh, can you run block and can you pass catch maybe 3 or 4 balls a game? No, that's not what the tight end position is anymore.
Not anymore.
The tight end position is and we're going to cover it next week on our 10. We got part 7 of our 10-part series of the Buffalo Bills breakdown. But I mean, you talk about a dynamic player like that. When I was looking at reports, Ebron, he tends to drop those easy ones every once in a while, and that's what we don't need.
Stevie Johnson.
Oh, God. You stop it. You stop it right now. But, I mean, when you think about it, though, that's not what, Woods and – actually, I'll focus on Woods. Woods is going to be the pacifier for the quarterback. Your tight end has to be your safe security blanket.
Absolutely.
He can't be dropping easy passes like that. So, would I be mad with Ebron? How many passes do you think he's going to catch this year from Manuel?
I'm not sure. It depends on the kind of offense that you run. I think that you have, you sound like a guy like Chandler, who, by the way, I think had a phenomenal year last year. I think led the Buffalo Bills in touchdowns, made some great catches. But those last few games, I mean, he dropped a bunch too. He caused a few interceptions as well. I mean, there's some balls that were easy catches where he tipped them up in the air and balls were intercepted.
We won't bring up the Atlanta game. We just won't do it.
Right. So
hurts my feelings.
Yeah. What was that, overtime that happened when he fumbled the ball?
Stop it. I'm losing my lunch.
So, Chandler's great. So put a guy like Ebron on the other side and, switch up your offense a little bit. They are playing a fast-paced offense. The NFL is seeing a new wave of NFL coaches coming in, college coaches coming in, young guys. Chip Kelly is one of them where they play this fast-paced offense. Having a guy like Ebron in the middle, there's very few linebackers that will be able to cover a guy like this.
Oh, yeah.
Very few. You're talking about the linebackers that can, there may be, 10 of them out there. And 5, 6, 7 of them might be in the NFC. The AFC is wide open. There's no talent in the AFC anymore. I don't see it. Not on the defensive side of the ball. I haven't seen any. But the Buffalo Bills have one of those teams where the defense could rank in the top 5 this year.
Yeah.
Should they draft one linebacker?
It's gonna be. You love that.
That's
linebacker.
all.
We're gonna have some
need.
debates coming up, but I mean, if you look at the Buffalo Bills, the thing that I looked at when the season ended for the Buffalo Bills, you lost Pettin. That was huge. I mean, he revamped and gave this city an identity with the type of defense that they were playing.
Right.
I would be surprised if the Buffalo Bills got 34 sacks this year. I'm going 2 a game because of Schwartz. Schwartz is he was a heck of a defensive coordinator. He's the disciple of Jeff Fisher.
Right.
And a disciple of Bills Greg Williams.
Right.
So
great defensive mind.
He loves to get pressure with the front 7, so that's where they were going to focus most of the. And Taylor, to your point of getting an inside linebacker,
he likes to rush 4 people. He rarely uses a blitz. I mean, he's not really a complicated guy. Most of his defensive scheme come in the form of zone, the secondary.
Yes.
What they can do with the 4-man rush.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the Detroit Lions. They rarely rushed. They rarely blitzed.
No, they didn't.
You know,
it's going to be a complete turnaround.
Yeah.
But the thing, I mean, you go from a 3-4 to a 4-3. You go from a really heavy, aggressive blitzing scheme to a guy who likes to play passive. And I mean, you don't have Ndamukong Suh on this team. You don't have Farrelly. But what you do have are two guys up there in Williams and I'm talking about Kyle Williams and Darius that could occupy three guys every play. Absolutely. So what does that do? That lets the cannonball Brandon Spikes destroy the run. You got your athlete Kiko Alonso to do anything you want, and you got Rivers, who's first-round talent, just hasn't been in the right system. He's played in both the 3-4 and the 4-3, so you have pieces in place. You picked up Corey Graham. You signed Aaron Williams. I mean, can we get any more Williams on this team? You got Mike Williams, Aaron Williams, Mario Williams, Kyle Williams. Like, how many guys do we want on this team to have Williams? But you're looking at that. The thing I wanted to ask you is this. You talk about inside linebacker. That's where you want the Bills to go with the 9th overall pick.
Got to stop that run.
If they go with Ebron, what is your and because I want to allude to this, what is your ballpark if they go with him? How many catches do you think he has? Do you think he has 60 next year if the Bills sign him and EJ's healthy the entire year?
I think the under-over is 60.
Okay.
I think you're close.
Because the thing is, I just pulled up, the Buffalo Bills dropped back. Now, this is a team that was second in rushing.
It's second in rushing for a reason because they rushed almost all the time.
Yeah. And, proven this. They threw the ball 522 times. So if one guy is going to catch it 60, but you drop back 520 times,
right?
What's more important then, the left tackle or the tight end?
Right, but when you got when you got a tight end who can block like a left tackle, Ebron is extremely strong. This is a guy who is known just as much for his blocking as he is for his speed. Hands are an issue, but you get that comes with coaching. Just like anything else. It also comes from a catchable ball. Chris Carter once said that he played in the Pro Bowl with Joe Montana. He said Joe Montana threw the most catchable ball that he's ever caught in his life. He said it just floated into your hands. And
Chris Carter does not apologize.
No, he does not. He does not apologize for anything. Now, you look at some of the guys today, just look at the difference between the ball that Peyton Manning throws and the ball that Tom Brady throws. They're very different. I think Tom Brady throws a little bit more like Joe Montana, where Peyton Manning throws a little bit more like Dan Marino.
I'm going to hop out of this chair in about 30 seconds. You just compared Tom Brady to my idol. I swear to God, I can't believe you just did that. No.
Joe Montana's my idol, too. Best quarterback ever. Peyton Manning, he wins the Super Bowl last year. He's that number one spot. I think right now he's number 2.
And if you want to argue with me about the whole Brady-Montana nonsense, Joe Montana, when they thought he was done, kept a Hall of Famer on the bench and won 2 more titles. Yeah. Okay, did Tom Brady do that? No. All right.
I want to talk to you real quick. Let's change course a little bit. You talked about on your last blog. You talked about the game and how it's turned into such a business.
Yes. The blog that's currently up on. If you go to buffalo+Sports.com, there's I put up a lot of my blogs are very stat ridden and very stat oriented. I'm a stat guy.
Right.
But that was just basically me taking a look at all the stats that I've been taking.
You're writing as a fan.
Yeah, I was. You know what? When you used to cheer for teams coming up, you're growing up. And I even said in the article, I knew every fall, Joe Montana was my idol. Every fall, he was going to be wearing the red and gold, number 16, every fall.
Until he was wearing red and white.
Until he's wearing, but that was 13 years later, though. I had moved on to Drew Bledsoe by that time. So
right. Number 1 pick overall.
Yeah, the thing was, you knew that. And then the way that the contracts are set right now, and
5 years.
These guys, they sign them, and they sign them to these, they give them the bonus all at the beginning,
right? That
they prorate it, and then your 4th and 5th year, we're going to give you $10 million a year. Then 4th and 5th year comes, and they cut them.
Right.
They cut the guy they release, and they trade him.
Right.
So as a fan, trying to learn about the business sense of it, it's kind of, okay, I got a jersey on my back, number whatever with the name.
Yeah.
Unless
Kozlowski.
Yeah. Unless I know anybody in a print shop, I'm going to be changing that every 5 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know you wanted. We were talking a little bit off air right before it. You wanted to talk more about the business sense and which business is it?
Right,
And
you know, when you talk about the NFL's business, you're absolutely right. I mean, you're always the commissioner Roger Goodell is always talking about. I want to get to, they're $10 billion a year business right now. He wants to get to $25 billion a year by the year 2030. 25 billion. I'm sorry, 25 billion a year. So there is a business there for sure. But when I read the article, it almost sounded as if you were upset with the business of football from a standpoint that maybe you know, the owners are no longer a fan of the game. You know, and I think you brought up, you know, some owners, you know, the Jerry Joneses of the game are not the, you know, give me, I forgot who, Art Modell or, you know, the even Ralph Wilson. And if you look at Ralph Wilson, you know, as an owner, God rest his soul, he kept the Bills in Buffalo. He could have went to L.A. and doubled his profits. You know, and you know, that's the beauty. That's the beauty about having fans as owners. You know, you get a guy like Dan Snyder. He's a fan. He's spending every single dollar to try to win a Super Bowl. He's not doing it well, but he is a fan.
He's currently suing St. Louis for the robbery that they did to him. Yeah, we could have had the second overall pick this year. Yeah, but you know, I know what you're talking. And a lot of it was coming from football is rooted in, you know, what's going on the field and in the rivalries, and that's what I truly loved about when I was watching the game.
I don't see the rivalries being gone though.
Well, I mean, could you think? I mean,
Marino Kelly, right?
Yes.
Marino Kelly.
Yeah.
Now it's Buffalo versus Brady. It's not an individual, but it's still Buffalo versus Brady.
Do you think that because you know the ones that I listed in the article, I was talking about obviously about Julius Peppers.
Yes, going
you know,
to
Jared
Chicago,
Allen,
to Green Bay.
Greg Jennings last year.
Jennings.
Do you think fantasy football?
I remember
has a part to
Peppers
play?
was with Carolina as well.
It wasn't interdivision.
It wasn't interdivision.
I was talking about interdivision. And then you talk
Right.
about Deshaun. I mean, we mentioned
Look
it
at Deshaun
last
Jackson,
Wednesday
right.
show. He goes to the Eagles. They want maybe the players are the ones that have the retribution or
Look at Drew
revenge to do.
Bledsoe going to the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, you tell you what,
Hey,
I love
Ty
Drew
Law.
Bledsoe when he was going, but anyone now that Belichick lets go, I'm not touching him.
Don't touch.
I'm not. If he can't work with you,
Nah.
not doing that.
Bledsoe has a unique way. I'm sorry, not Bledsoe. Belichick has a very unique way of taking replacements and turning them into stars, and then when he gets rid of them, they turn back into replacements. Replacement parts. It just
Patrick Chung just came back. He
Yeah.
went to the Eagles for a payday. He came back.
Yeah.
Because he knows the system. So
It's great coaching, and he knows how to identify each individual's talents and make sure that their weaknesses aren't as exposed and their strengths are honed into a sharp skill. So that's another subject. But I wanted to talk about a little bit more about the business side of the NFL.
Okay.
And to me, you talked that it was, you know, the loser was the fan, and that's the one key that I want to rebut, because I don't believe the fans are losers in this. The NFL today, there's more parity. Every single year you're getting 6 brand new teams in the playoffs.
I despise that.
Yeah, I know you do. You like, hey, look, I'm a Yankee fan. You know, and Yankees, you know, everybody talks about, oh, Yankees bought the World Series. Every year, every time they win it, they bought it. You know, there's a lot of teams out there trying to buy stuff, and they don't win. You know, let's talk about the Knicks. You know, let's talk about the Mets. Talk about any New York
Dodgers
team.
this year. They're paying. They got more on their payroll than the Yankees do this year.
They do, for the first time in a long time.
Yeah,
you know, but then you look in the NFL. The Washington Redskins, you know, and they spend right up to the limit every year, and they get themselves into trouble. But Seattle didn't have look at the Super Bowl winners. They don't have these big, huge, gross payrolls.
Not yet, though.
Yeah, but they can't. They've got glass ceilings. You know, they've got a glass ceiling, and I think those glass ceilings are good for the sport. It's good for the sport because it creates parity. It gives everybody an equal playing field, and now it's all about skill. It's about skill and who's the best in business, because business now has become a sport.
Mhm.
And if you look at it from the sense of those GMs making those deals with the people, keeping the right guys in place, that's the sport now, is the business part. So you want to talk about the teams that are always at the top of their game. They're at the top of their game because they hire good businessmen, that men that can identify talent and know what it's worth and know value. And that's the thing about New England and why they're always at the top. They create value. Now, New England hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2003. Fine. It's been 11 years. They've been in 2. They lost to the kryptonite New York Giants. But they're always there. They win the AFC division every single year, except the 1 year they didn't win it when Brady went down.
Oh, stop it.
The AFC East division.
Stop it.
Yes.
Let me see.
Granted, they've got the lowly Jets and the lowly Dolphins and the lowly
You play
Bills.
against Chad Henne, Chad Pennington.
There you go, though.
Lossman.
It's
Edwards.
those GMs drafting him. And you know what? You know who drafted Henne? Bill Parcells.
From Michigan.
From Michigan.
Yeah, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it's just sometimes it's just the way it is. If you look at first-round draft picks, it's a 50-50. It's a crapshoot. But some people always get it right more than others.
Because of the parity that you speak of that's going on in the NFL right now. I remember when there was dominance by 2 or 3 teams every year. When we talk about teams, we talk about the Packers of the 60s. We talk about the Steelers of the 70s, the 49ers of the 80s. Teams aren't going to be talked about in decades anymore. They're just going to be talked about in seasons because of the parity that you said.
I don't know if that's
created.
true. Let's talk about who's the team of the decade in the 2000s.
Who would you put it on? Would you put it on the Steelers?
I'd put two
Would you
teams,
put it
the
on
Steelers and the Patriots. Those are the 2 teams I'd take. They're always there. They're always battling. And those games are really brutal.
So are you signifying those because of how many championships they won? Because you can make an argument about the 90s. Who would you give it to? Would you give it to the Cowboys? Would you give it to the Broncos? Would you give it to the Packers?
Again,
those teams were dominant.
Yeah, another team that was always dominant during the 90s, even though they didn't win they won as many as the Packers did, was the San Francisco 49ers. I mean,
they won a lot of games.
They won a lot of games every year. They were there, and every year they ended up losing in the NFC Championship. Whether it was to the Cowboys or the
Seifert.
Giants, yeah, Seifert, right? So they, they were always there, and maybe they were the team of the '80s, and they were always just one game away from being the team of the '90s. But as far as the team in the '90s, I mean, you got to give it to the Cowboys. How can you not?
I know. I have to because the loop will come and get me if I don't give it to.
You have to give it to the Cowboys. I hate the Cowboys, but you got to give it to them.
The thing was, though, I mean, and in talking about the parity, what the point I was trying to get to was, people always talk about the draft and
right.
It's the first and second rounders. Then you don't have to in the 90s and 80s. You didn't have to watch the rest of the draft.
That's right.
Now, being that the game is such a business, there's businessmen, there's scouts. You have to be able to draft quality players throughout. If you don't do that, Richard Sherman, 5th round pick. Cam
Stevie
Chancellor,
Johnson,
7th
rounder.
Yeah, from Kentucky. And
yeah.
But it's very tough. You got to be very deep in the draft. It's not just about the first or second round guys you get. That's
absolutely right.
It seems like the first and second round guys, they're so hit or miss because there's such a high expectation.
And you know what that comes down to, in my opinion, is the amount of talent that's in the pool these days. There's more talent in college football today than there ever was in the history of college football. And that comes down to the training that these players are receiving. Back in the day, and I'm talking back in my day, not in your day, you played 4 or 5 sports in high school. You went from basketball to hockey and baseball and football and soccer, and sometimes you played golf or tennis.
How dare you? I never played soccer. I never played hockey, too. I never played hockey either, but I liked it.
I don't know if you were a lacrosse player. But today, in today's world, they take 1 or 2 sports, at the very most 2 sports, basketball and football. You won't see a basketball or a football guy playing baseball, or football and baseball. That's a big one too, especially with quarterbacks. But they played one sport and they play it over and over again, and they have this repetitive motions that they get ingrained in them, and they do it over and over. That's why you're seeing all these injuries these days. You know, a lot of doctors are coming out saying, hey, the injuries are going up not because the sport's becoming more dangerous, but because these kids are trained at such a young age to do one thing over and over and over again that they wear down quicker, that their mileage you know, the mileage on these joints, on whether it's the knees or the elbows or wherever it is, the back, the neck, they're wearing them down a lot faster today than any time in history. So that being said, you're creating a pool of talent much larger than what we grew up with. I mean, that's why the parity in football these days is much better, and college basketball as well. You know?
I just hope it just doesn't get sloppy, because I mean, this is the biggest wave of underclassmen that's coming into the NFL draft.
Agreed.
And if these guys are not ready to play at the pro level, I mean, you're playing against men now. You're not playing against 18, 19-year-old people. You're playing against men now who will take your head off.
You're absolutely right. And you're not as big at 20 as you are at 24.
Well, the good thing about it, though, is Goodell, the way he's trying to make the NFL, you're not going to be able to touch anybody. So that's where we're getting hurt, I guess. Maybe I should retract that.
Put some flags on them.
The crazy, crazy Goodell.
That's an hour conversation on its own.
Oh my God! Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure how much we have time. You know, why don't we talk about the Final Four this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
And see what you like, and then I'll tell you what to bet.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Hashtag Sports. You can find us at hashtagsports.net, ultimatesportstalk.com, or with the big man in charge here, Johnny the Sheriff Shabbat at Buck Sports. He's also on Twitter at Buck Sports. That's BUK Sports. The Final Four.
Yes.
Who you got?
When I look at college basketball, I mean, basketball is one of those sports that it is a players' league. Football is a coach's league. You got a good coach. You got a coach like the Harbaughs or Bill Belichick, Carroll. These guys, coaches can win with anybody in football, not in basketball. In basketball, it's all about the players. So you look at the talent pool of players and you look at their chemistry. You got to go with Florida against Connecticut. Now, if you look at the stats, everybody's going to go, hey, you know what? Connecticut beat Florida 5 times out of the last 5 times they met in the Final Four. So they're 5-0 against Florida.
I love how they bring stats up. Were any of those like in recent?
Not even close.
Well, there's different
cares?
teams. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Different teams, different coaches. But everyone's.
I love when they bring that up. You know what? The last magic. 8 meetings, the Buffalo Bills have beaten the St. Louis Rams. Well,
that's right.
That was when they were in L.A. and it was in the 80s.
Exactly.
So stop it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
So Florida's got the talent. They've got, I believe, 3 sophomores, 2 seniors that are just that play well together. And I know in the beginning of the season, they didn't have good chemistry, and they were still winning games because they were just so darn talented. I just don't see how Connecticut's going to match up against Florida. I really don't. I don't know. I got to check the line here. Give me 1 second.
I mean, something has to be said if you're the last remaining 1 seed. That has to say something. From personal experience, my bracket got destroyed when Duke lost in the first round because I pick Duke every year, but I don't bet.
I think
so
everyone's.
I just always do that. I think I ended up going like 27-5 in the first round of all the games, but one of those happened to be the team that I thought was going to win it. So, I really like the run that Kentucky's been on. Wisconsin has surprised a lot of people as well. A lot of people thought Creighton would be coming out of that bracket.
That is a tough game. I think that's going to be the better game. I don't think Florida's going to be close. I think Florida wins by 10.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I think Florida's going to win by 10.
Count it.
Kentucky, they're a rebounding machine when it comes down in basketball. I mean, I think they had like almost 30 offensive rebounds. Not even rebounds, just offensive rebounds in the last game against Michigan. Wisconsin's got the only 7-foot player left in the bracket, in number 44, and he may be able to help with the defensive rebounds, keeping those away from Kentucky. I like Kentucky in that one. I'm gonna go Kentucky. Final shot. It's really whoever has the ball last in that game.
Okay.
And honestly, it's really who's got the ball last, and if they have the ball last, both teams can shoot like crazy, and they don't miss. They haven't missed. So I'm gonna go with whoever has the ball last, and I'm thinking Kentucky will do that. They beat some great teams. Kentucky did along the way.
Oh yeah.
Wisconsin really didn't really beat anybody that great. They beat Arizona, which to me was. I thought it was going to be Arizona, Florida in the final too, and with Florida taking it all, I still think Florida is going to win it all. It's going to be Kentucky, Florida, and Florida's going to win it.
Kentucky versus Florida, and Florida taking home. Now, you said college basketball is more player-driven, whereas college football is more coach-driven.
Right.
So, do you think that it's more? I'm going to ask you. Do you think it's more player-driven in the round of 64 and 32 and 60, and then when we start to get to the Elite Eight, it starts to be coach because you got Donovan in your final. You got Donovan against Calipari.
Donovan is, I think, one of the best college coaches ever. I really do, and he's young still. I mean, he's really what has he got? 5 titles already?
I'll check it out right now.
I believe 5 titles, and So you have a point there. When it comes down to the Final Four, he's got 2 titles in 2006 and 7.
Yes.
He's been there 5 times, maybe, or 5 times in the Final
NCAA
Four.
regional championships in the Final Four 4 times.
4 times. Okay, so this is his 5th time in the Final
Four. And he bookended it with, the 2006-2007 season. He had 2000 and 2014. This one right now. So.
Right. Right. So, and in the 6-7, he got lucky because some of those key players ended up staying. Joakim Noah and 2 other guys who are all NBA players. They ended up staying. So as freshmen, and they came back their sophomore years and won it again, which rarely happens in college basketball. I mean, as soon as a guy can go pro, they do.
Yeah, he's got 450 wins at age 48.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. I'm gonna be here for a while.
I'm not sure if there's any coach who's ever done that. And as far as Gator Nation, you're talking about a football town. This is a guy who came in and brought basketball to a town that could give a crap about basketball. I think their average attendance before Donovan came in and won those championships was maybe about 4,000 per game, or maybe a little bit less than 5,000 per game. But now they're averaging almost a full stadium. I think they pack in almost 15,000 seats, and they're almost there almost every single game. They're selling out every single game. So this is a guy who created his own Gator Nation, and he's going to go down with the best. Coach K, Roy Williams. These guys are. He's going to go down as, I think, the best college basketball coach ever. By the time he's done.
I'm writing that down.
He came to Florida, which wasn't a basketball town. They took a gamble on him. He was new, although he did coach under Louisville coach. My God, Patino.
Rick Pitino.
Pitino, yeah. Thank you. I'm having a hard time with names today.
That's okay. I can't remember mine half the time, so you're all right.
I did a detox over the last 5-6 days, and I have very few little food instead of
today's stuff.
I might be hallucinating a little bit, so excuse me. I haven't eaten in a long time until today.
This is the sixth sense. You're not actually talking to anybody. Might be a beautiful mind too. I'm not really sure, but
So yeah, that's all I got, man. Take Florida. They're gonna win by 10. Kentucky's gonna win by 1 or 2, and I think Florida wins it all. Good luck and buck.
Good luck and buck. So that is our show for tonight. Like I said, you can find us at #sports.net. We're the Sheriff. The Sheriff's there as well. You can also see the Sheriff exclusively at buffalo+sports.com. Any closing statements to to ride off into the sunset, Sheriff?
You know, I wanna let everybody know that I'm gonna do my best to be here every single Friday. The first quarter of the year is always my busy season at work. So, but football season, I cannot wait. I've also got buckbuck.com is going to be opening soon. We're gonna have some sweepstake giveaways, giving away some iPads. If you go to buckbuck.com. Answer some of the questions. That's going to be open hopefully in the next week or two. So don't go there now. You won't find anything there now, but it will be there in the next week or two. We're giving away some iPads just for answering a few trick questions. Also, just planting the seed here, we're going to be having auditions for our mascot at buckbuck.com. Bucky the chicken is going to need a voice, so we're going to be auditioning for the job. So
In a world.
Buck. So look for that, and we're hoping to get you guys more blogging on buffalo+sports.com. But I want to get back into the predictions and make you guys some money, so look forward to that. And I'll be gone. I'll be on vacation for 2 weeks, but I'll be back in 2 weeks after the 20th. On that Friday. So look for me. I believe it is the 25th, Friday the 25th. I'll be back. Look for me, and hopefully, hopefully we'll be seeing you after that almost every single week. Alrighty.
Awesome. And then, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, you're listening to Hashtag Sports. Coming up next Wednesday, just to give you a little bit of a preview, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills tight end position. The Buffalo Bills 10-part series, the Buffalo Breakdown, is going to go all the way until Wednesday, May 7th, and then we will be right here in Hashtag Studios to give you the first 10 picks of the draft, and you're going to have the full gamut of the Hashtag crew, the closer, Loop, the Sheriff, and myself. The game will be there. We will be hooking up with the legend via phone call because he is down in Virginia, and he's going to have a few things to say. So until Monday.
Until Monday.
We are your social media sports talk radio station. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you.